Have your papers in my hand at my place Sunday, 5 o'clock, not a minute later.
All right, Mr. Turner, I should tell you, my dog ate it.
Not yet.
What happens when a sitcom character just stops working? Sometimes the writers send them off with a tearful goodbye, and other times, they pretend they never existed in the first place. It's a ruthless business, and we've got the receipts. From forgotten family members to main characters who were completely memory-holed, this is the ultimate list of characters who went out for a carton of milk and never came back. 1. Chuck Cunningham, Happy Days.
Can I have $10 to buy a blouse?
No.
All right, then. Can I have $10 to buy books?
I want a receipt.
I'll get it.
Let's set the scene. It's the early 1970s, and America has fallen in love with Happy Days, a show that looks back at the wholesome, simpler times of the 1950s. We all know the Cunningham family, the wise dad Howard, the loving mom Marion, the cool son Richie, and the bubbly daughter Joni. But in the very beginning, there was one more Cunningham kid, an older brother. His name was Chuck. Believe it or not, in the first season, Chuck Cunningham was a recurring character. He was the oldest son, a jock who loved playing basketball. You'd see him walking through the house, dribbling a basketball on his way to practice or a game at the local university. He was meant to be the responsible, athletic older sibling, a contrast to the more thoughtful Richie and the goofy Fonzie. He appeared in a handful of episodes, a quiet but present member of the family. He'd offer a piece of advice, grab a glass of milk from the fridge, and then head out the door. He was, for all intents and purposes, the third Cunningham child. And then one day, he dribbled that basketball right out the front door and apparently off the face of the earth. After the first season, Chuck was never seen again. But here's the truly bizarre part. He wasn't just written out. He was retconned out of existence. Later in the series, Howard and Marion would talk about their two wonderful children, Richie and Joni. It was as if their firstborn son had been completely wiped from their memories. The family photos on the wall no longer included him. They had two kids, and that was that. The writers hoped nobody would notice, and for the most part, they were right. Happy Days became a massive hit, and Chuck Cunningham became a piece of TV trivia, the founding father of forgotten characters. The behind-the-scenes reason was simple. The writers felt Chuck was a boring character who didn't add much to the show's dynamic. They wanted to focus more on Richie and his relationship with the breakout star, Fonzie. So instead of explaining his absence with a line about him being away at college or joining the army, they took the easy way out. They just pretended he never existed. It was a cold move that set a precedent for countless shows to come. But erasing a dull older brother is one thing. What happens when a show gets rid of a cute, innocent little sister right in the middle of its run? Truth be told, it gets even weirder. 2. Judy Winslow, Family Matters.
Well, what's 7 times 9? 63. Thanks. Lo, what's 8 times 9? 72. Lo, what's 81?
If Chuck Cunningham is the king of vanished characters, Judy Winslow is the undisputed queen. Her disappearance from the hit 90s sitcom Family Matters is probably the most famous and baffling case of a character being erased from their own family. For millions of kids growing up in the 90s, the Winslow family was a comforting presence on their TV screens. There was the cop dad Carl, the smart mom Harriet, the cool older brother Eddie, and the sharp-witted sister Laura. And for the first 4 seasons, there was another child, Judy, the youngest daughter. Judy was a sweet, quiet kid, often seen playing with her toys or dropping a cute one-liner before the next big scene started. She was part of the family dynamic, the innocent youngest child who was often caught in the middle of her older siblings' squabbles or the latest chaos caused by their nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel. She was there in the opening credits, smiling and dancing with the rest of the family. She was undeniably a Winslow. She was present for nearly 100 episodes, a cornerstone of the show's early years. Then, at the start of season 5, she was gone. Completely. In the season 4 finale, she walks upstairs, and that's the last time anyone ever saw her. There was no explanation, no mention of her going to visit a grandma or being sent off to boarding school. The Winslows just started season 5 with 2 children instead of 3, and they never ever mentioned their youngest daughter again. Later in the series, Harriet would even mention she was proud of both her children. It was a total memory wipe, a move so bold and bizarre that fans still talk about it today. It was Chuck Cunningham all over again, but this time it was a little girl. So, what happened? The story behind the scenes is a little heartbreaking. As the show went on, the breakout character was, of course, Steve Urkel. He started as a one-off guest star and quickly became the main attraction. The plots began to revolve more and more around Urkel and his wacky inventions. According to reports, the producers felt that Judy's character was becoming pointless. They believed she didn't have much to do and that her salary could be better used elsewhere on the show's budget. So they simply let the actress, Jamie Foxworth, go and pretended her character never existed. It was a purely business decision that left a strange, Judy-shaped hole in the heart of one of America's favorite TV families. Erasing a child is a shocking move, but at least the Winslows had other kids to focus on. Imagine being a character who was so pointless, the writers introduced you and gave up on you in less than half a season. 3. 7. Married with children.
I just love Mommy and you. Daddy. There's not another who can take
The sitcom Married with Children was famous for being the opposite of shows like Family Matters. It was rude, crude, and proud of it. The Bundy family was a glorious mess. There was the lazy dad Al, the shopaholic mom Peggy, the ditzy daughter Kelly, and the scheming son Bud. They were a perfect, dysfunctional unit. For 6 seasons, this formula worked beautifully. But then, in season 7, the producers made a decision that still baffles fans to this day. They tried to add a new kid. This wasn't just any kid. This was a character named Seven. The storyline was that he was the young son of Peggy's cousins, who, after a visit, just left him behind with the Bundys. So suddenly, Al and Peggy had this precocious, smart-mouthed little boy living in their house. The idea was to inject some new life into the show and give the writers new stories to play with. The actor, Shane Sweet, was a cute kid who did his best with what he was given. The problem was, nobody wanted this. The entire appeal of Married with Children was its cynical, anti-family humor. The last thing fans wanted was a cute kid softening the edges of the Bundy household. The character of Seven was a total flop. The jokes written for him fell flat, and he had zero chemistry with the rest of the cast. He felt completely out of place, like a character from a different show had wandered onto the wrong set. The audience rejected him immediately and loudly. The network and producers got the message, and they acted fast. After just a handful of episodes, Seven started appearing less and less. Then, in one famous episode, he was seen on the side of a milk carton with his picture under the word "missing." And after about 12 episodes, he vanished from the show completely. Unlike Judy Winslow, his disappearance was at least acknowledged, but only in a mocking meta way. Bud and Kelly would occasionally make a joke about their little brother who disappeared, breaking the fourth wall and winking at the audience about the show's failed experiment. It was a rare case where the show admitted its mistake and turned the vanished character into an inside joke. Introducing a new character who fails is one thing, but what about a character who was supposed to be a main pillar of the show from the very beginning, only to be completely forgotten? That's a whole different level of disappearing act. 4. Coco, the Golden Girls.
I think I can handle this relationship with Dirk. I'm going out with him Saturday night.
Was there ever any doubt?
Momentarily. This is strictly off the record, but Dirk's nearly 5 years younger than I am.
And what, Blanche? Dog years?
Everyone knows the cast of The Golden Girls. It's one of the most iconic ensembles in television history. There's the witty Dorothy, the sweet Rose, the bold Blanche, and the sharp-tongued Sophia. The four of them living together in that Miami house created TV magic. Their chemistry was perfect. But what if I told you that in the very beginning, there was a fifth main character? It's true. When The Golden Girls first aired, the pilot episode featured a character named Coco. He was the girls' cook and housekeeper, a funny and flamboyant man who lived with them in the house. He was played by the talented actor Charles Levin. In that first episode, Coco is right there in the mix. He's in the kitchen, making food, cracking jokes with the girls, and participating in their famous late-night chats around the kitchen table. The show was originally conceived as being about these four women and their wisecracking houseman. He was an integral part of the pilot. Then, the show got picked up for a full season, and by the second episode, Coco was gone, vanished, never to be seen or heard from again. He wasn't mentioned, his absence wasn't explained, and the girls simply took over all the cooking and cleaning duties themselves. What happened? It was a classic case of a character becoming redundant before the show even got started. The story goes that during the filming of the pilot, the writers added the character of Sophia Petrillo, Dorothy's mother. The legendary actress Estelle Getty was so funny, and her chemistry with the other three women was so electric that the producers realized they had struck gold. Sophia could deliver the same kind of sarcastic, truth-telling lines they had planned for Coco, but with the added bonus of the mother-daughter dynamic with Dorothy. They realized that with Sophia in the house, a fifth character was unnecessary and would just take screen time away from the four leading ladies. So a tough decision was made. They cut the character of Coco completely after the pilot. He's a fascinating ghost of what the show could have been, a forgotten original golden guy. Losing a character from a pilot is pretty common, but losing a major love interest and a key part of a show's foundation after 2 full seasons? That's almost unheard of. 5. Mark Brendanawicz, Parks and Recreation.
I've been thinking about maybe leaving this job, but I felt like I needed a sign. And then Anne broke up with me the week that I was going to propose. The government got shut down, and yesterday, one of those pigeons took a on me, and I was indoors, so...
Parks and Recreation is one of the most beloved sitcoms of the modern era, celebrated for its incredible ensemble cast. Leslie Knope, Ron Swanson, April Ludgate, Andy Dwyer. These characters feel like old friends. But cast your mind back to the very beginning of the show, back in Season 1. There was another major character, a city planner named Mark Brendanawicz. Mark wasn't just a side character, he was a central figure. He was the straight man in a world of weirdos. He was a love interest for Leslie Knope in the first season, and their will they won't they dynamic was a major plot point. Later, he entered a serious relationship with Ann Perkins. He was positioned as a normal, slightly cynical guy who had become jaded with his government job. His journey of rediscovering his passion for public service was supposed to be a core part of the show's arc. Actor Paul Schneider was a main cast member, featured in all the promotional material and in the opening credits for the first 2 seasons. At the end of Season 2, Mark decides to leave his government job to work in the private sector. In his final scene, he says goodbye to Leslie, giving her plans for a park design he came up with. He tells her he might see her around, and then he's gone. Forever. And here's the mind-blowing part. No one ever speaks his name again. For the next 5 seasons, it's as if Mark Brendanawicz never worked in Pawnee, never dated Leslie, and never dated Anne. His existence was completely and utterly scrubbed from the show's memory. When Leslie's future husband, Ben Wyatt, later mentions her past relationships, Mark is conspicuously absent from the list. The reason for this bizarre disappearing act comes down to creative differences. Paul Schneider has said in interviews that he felt the role wasn't the right fit for him and that the writers weren't sure what to do with his character. The introduction of the characters Ben Wyatt and Chris Traeger at the end of Season 2 provided a new energy that the show desperately needed, and Mark just no longer fit in. But instead of occasionally referencing him or having him pop up as a guest star, the creators chose the more extreme route. They performed a full-on memory wipe, making Mark Brendanawicz the most significant character of the 21st century to fall victim to Chuck Cunningham syndrome. Forgetting a co-worker is one thing. Forgetting your own sister? We've seen that happen. But what about forgetting a sister who only existed for one single episode? Now that's a deep cut. 6. Tina Pinciotti, That 70s Show.
As you know, I'm on the pill, so here is your copy of the prophylactic waiver.
Oh, looks like we have a deal here. I'm looking forward to consummation.
Excellent.
Thank you.
If you're a fan of That 70s Show, you know all about the Foreman family and their next-door neighbors, the Pinciottis. There's the goofy dad Bob, the flighty mom Midge, and their smart, tough-as-nails daughter, Donna. Donna was Eric Foreman's main love interest and a core member of the gang who spent all their time in his basement. For 8 seasons, she was presented as an only child. But she wasn't. You have to go all the way back to Season 1 to an episode called Thanksgiving. In this episode, the gang is all together, and we meet more of their families. And sitting there at the Pinciotti dinner table is a younger girl, about 14 years old. This is Tina, Donna's little sister. She has a few lines, interacts with her family, and is clearly established as being part of the Pinciotti household. She even has a crush on Eric's friend, Fez. She's a real character who is there on screen. And then, nothing. That was the first and last time we ever saw or heard of Tina Pinciotti. From that episode forward, Donna was an only child. Bob and Midge only had one daughter. The show never referenced a second child ever again. Did she run away? Was she sent to a relative's house? Nope. She was just zapped out of the show's reality. It's one of the most glaring and bizarre continuity errors in a major sitcom. The writers clearly created her, decided they didn't like her or didn't have any stories for her, and just dropped her without a second thought, hoping no one would remember that one Thanksgiving dinner. Truth be told, the reason is probably very simple. Early in a show's run, writers are often throwing ideas at the wall to see what sticks. They probably thought giving Donna a younger sister would create some new story possibilities, but ultimately decided it was more effective for her character to be an only child, making her bond with her parents and her relationship with Eric the central focus. So, poor Tina Pinciotti was sacrificed for the greater good of the show and became a ghost in the That 70s Show canon, a fun piece of trivia for only the most die-hard fans. Vanishing siblings seems to be a common theme, but some disappearances are even more mysterious, like a fan-favorite mentor who is left in limbo for decades. 7. Mr. Turner, Boy Meets World.
Have your papers in my hand at my place Sunday, 5 o'clock, not a minute later.
All right, Mr. Turner, I should tell you, my dog ate it.
Not yet.
Boy Meets World was a cornerstone of ABC's TGIF lineup in the 90s, guiding a generation of kids through the ups and downs of growing up. At the heart of the show were Corey Matthews and his friends, and their relationship with their teachers. While Mr. Feeney was the ultimate mentor figure, there was another teacher who played a huge role in the kids' lives, Jonathan Turner. Mr. Turner was the cool English teacher. He rode a motorcycle, wore a leather jacket, and lived in an awesome apartment. He connected with Corey, Sean, and Topanga in a way that other adults couldn't. He wasn't just their teacher, he became a friend, and for Sean Hunter, a legal guardian and father figure. For several seasons, Mr. Turner was a central part of the show, guiding the boys through high school with a perfect blend of tough love and genuine care. He was a beloved character. Then came the Season 4 episode, Cult Fiction. In a shocking turn of events, Mr. Turner gets into a serious motorcycle accident. The final scene of the episode shows him lying unconscious in a hospital bed, with Sean tearfully begging him to be okay. It was a huge cliffhanger. And then, nothing. The next season started, and Mr. Turner was gone. His name was barely mentioned. Sean went back to living in his family's trailer park, and the show moved on to the kids' senior year, as if their cool motorcycle riding mentor had never been a major part of their lives. For years, fans were left wondering, what happened to Mr. Turner? Did he survive the crash? Did he just move away? The ambiguity was agonizing for fans. The show never gave a definitive answer. The writers and producers just dropped his storyline completely. It wasn't until nearly 20 years later that the mystery was finally solved. The sequel series, Girl Meets World, brought back the actor Anthony Tyler Quinn to reprise his role. It was revealed that Mr. Turner had, in fact, survived. He recovered, fell in love with his nurse, and went on to become a school superintendent. It was a satisfying conclusion, but it came 2 decades too late for the millions of fans who were left hanging by one of the cruelest vanishing acts in sitcom history. It was a case where a character didn't just disappear from the show, but from his own unresolved cliffhanger. Leaving a character's fate up in the air is one way to handle it. Another is to simply swap out the actor and hope nobody notices. But what happens when even the replacement actor disappears? Things get complicated. 8. Lori Foreman, That 70s Show.
We're only one goodbye away from heaven.
Mommy, Daddy, I'm home.
We gotta start locking that door.
We have to go back to Point Place, Wisconsin, because the Foreman family has its own disappearing act that's even more complicated than the Pinciottis. We all remember Eric Foreman's older sister, Lori. She was a hilarious and memorable character, known for being manipulative, promiscuous, and a constant thorn in Eric's side. She was a key part of the family dynamic, the perfect daughter in her parents' eyes, even though the audience knew the truth. Lori was played brilliantly by actress Lisa Robin Kelly for the first few seasons. But behind the scenes, the actress was struggling with personal issues, and she left the show midway through season 3. Her character was written out by saying she went off to beauty school. For a while, she was gone but not forgotten, occasionally mentioned by the family. But then, the producers decided to bring the character back for season 6. The only problem was, Lisa Robin Kelly was not in a position to return. So, they did what shows often do. They recast the role. A new actress, Christina Moore, stepped in to play Lori. The show made a little joke about it, with Red Foreman saying something like, "You look different." But the new version of the character just didn't have the same chaotic energy. The chemistry was off, and after only a handful of episodes in season 6, this new Lori also disappeared. This time, there was no explanation at all. She was there for a few episodes, and then she wasn't. The character of Lori Foreman, played by 2 different actresses, vanished for good. She was never seen or heard from again for the rest of the series, not even for the finale. It was a double disappearance, a character so troubled that she vanished twice. The story highlights the difficult situation writers face when dealing with off-screen issues. They tried to keep the character alive, but ultimately it was easier to just let her fade away into sitcom history, leaving the Foreman family with just one, slightly less dysfunctional child. Vanishing family members are a recurring theme, but sometimes the person who disappears isn't family, but a best friend who is supposed to be a main character. 9. Stacy, the King of Queens.
Actually, maybe we are meant to have a baby, and my dad is our baby. The only difference is we don't change him. Yet.
The King of Queens ran for 9 successful seasons, built on the simple and hilarious dynamic of 3 people living in one house: the lovable delivery driver Doug Heffernan, his sharp-tongued wife Carrie, and her eccentric, troublemaking father, Arthur. That core trio is what everyone remembers. But in the first season, there was a 4th main character, Carrie's sister, Stacy. If you only watched the later seasons, you would think Carrie was an only child. But in season 1, her younger sister Stacy was a constant presence. She was an aspiring actress, a bit more naive and optimistic than the cynical Carrie. She was played by actress Nikki Cox and was a regular cast member. Her storylines often involved her clashes with her dad, Arthur, or her desperate attempts to get acting jobs, with Doug and Carrie getting dragged into her schemes. She was part of the original formula of the show. Then, season 2 started, and Stacy was gone. No explanation. No goodbye. Arthur continued to live in the basement, but his other daughter was never mentioned again. It was a complete and total wipe from the show's reality. It's especially strange because her father, Arthur, was a man who loved to complain and talk about his family, yet he never once referenced having a second daughter for the remaining 8 seasons of the show. The behind-the-scenes story here isn't one of drama, but of creative evolution. The writers quickly realized that the strongest and funniest dynamic was between Doug, Carrie, and Arthur. Stacy's character, while pleasant, didn't add much to that core conflict. In fact, she often distracted from it. The creators felt the show was simpler and funnier as a 3-person comedy. So, they made the tough choice to cut the character loose and tighten their focus. It was the right call for the show, which went on to become a huge hit, but it left Stacy as another ghost in the sitcom graveyard, a forgotten family member from a show that ran for nearly a decade without ever looking back. Forgetting a sister who was a main character is one thing, but what about slowly forgetting your own son? As we head into one of the biggest sitcoms of all time, we find a case of vanishing that is less of a sudden disappearance and more of a slow, heartbreaking fade to black. 10. Ben Geller, Friends.
Okay, and then you take the poopy diaper and you put it in the poopy diaper pail.
Okay, Ross, just so you know, calling it a poopy diaper doesn't make this process any cuter.
Friends is arguably the biggest sitcom of its generation, a show that is still watched by millions every single day. We know the 6 friends inside and out. We also know their families and their kids. We saw the birth of Ross's son, Ben, in a huge emotional 2-part episode in season 1. We saw him grow from a baby into a cute, mischievous little boy, played by the actor Cole Sprouse. Ben was Ross's first child, a major part of his life, and a character who created tons of funny and sweet storylines. For the first several seasons, Ben was a consistent presence. We saw Ross struggle with co-parenting with his ex-wife Susan and her wife Carol. We saw Ben learn to ride a bike, we saw him get into trouble with Rachel, and we saw him being taught about Hanukkah by his dad, the holiday armadillo. He was a real tangible part of the Friends universe, and then he just wasn't? Sometime around season 8, after appearing in a handful of episodes, Ben completely disappeared from the show. He was mentioned from time to time, but we never saw him again for the last 2.5 seasons. Here's the truly baffling part. He was absent for some of the most important moments in his father's life. He wasn't there when his baby sister Emma was born. He never appeared in the hospital. He wasn't at his father's wedding to Emily. He wasn't at his Aunt Monica and Uncle Chandler's wedding. He was a ghost. Fans have joked for years that Ross lost custody, but the show never gave any explanation for his complete absence from family events. The real reason is likely a practical one. As a show winds down, it can be complicated to work with child actors and their limited schedules. It was probably easier for the writers to just focus on the 6 main friends and the new baby, Emma. But in the world of the show, it comes off as a strange and sad case of parental neglect. Ben Geller didn't just vanish from our screens. He vanished from his own family's life, making him one of the most glaringly absent children in sitcom history. Ben's slow fade from memory is sad, but at least he got a few good years. Some characters get a proper emotional goodbye, only to be completely erased from their best friend's memory moments later. 11. Andrew Boner Stabone, Growing Pains.
So how was it?
How was what?
Well, you know, the kiss.
Just between you and me, it was pretty hot.
Wow. Show me.
In the world of 80s sitcoms, every cool main character needed a goofy best friend, and for Mike Seaver on Growing Pains, that friend was Andrew Stabone, better known by his unfortunate nickname, Boner. Boner was Mike's loyal, dim-witted, but good-hearted sidekick. He was there for all of Mike's schemes, usually messing them up in some hilarious way. He was a recurring character for the first few seasons and a genuine fan favorite. He was played by Andrew Koenig, who brought a real sweetness to the role. Unlike most characters on this list, Boner didn't just vanish without a trace. The writers actually gave him a thoughtful and emotional send-off. In a two-part episode in Season 4, Boner decides to enlist in the U.S. Marine Corps, believing it will give him the discipline and direction he lacks. His goodbye scene with Mike is genuinely touching, as the two best friends realize their childhood is over and they're heading down different paths. Mike is proud of him, but also sad to see him go. Boner marches off to start his new life, and it feels like a fitting end for his character arc. But here's where the vanishing act comes in. After that episode, it's as if Boner Stabone was wiped from the Seaver family's collective consciousness. Mike almost never mentioned his best friend again. You'd think he would talk about getting letters from boot camp or worry about his friend being in the military, but there was almost nothing. For the rest of the show's long run, Mike got new friends, and his formative years with his supposed best buddy were relegated to the dustbin of history. The show gave him a beautiful exit, and then completely forgot he ever existed. It's a strange case where a character's departure was handled perfectly, but the aftermath was a classic case of Chuck Cunningham syndrome. It proved that even with a proper goodbye, a character can still be completely erased from a show's ongoing story, leaving fans to wonder if anyone in the Seaver house even remembered the kid they called Boner.